Hi there again. I'm Yolanda Rasco. Thank you guys for coming into Author Talks, and we have a great treat for you tonight. I am going to introduce here our moderator. Her name is Dr. Elizabeth Sandy Ford. I'm going to do a quick bio, and then she's going to introduce our featured author. Our author here is no stranger, Omkari Williams, who's the author of Micro-Activism. How many of you have read the book? Oh, you gotta get it. I have read it, I have marked it up, I have given it away, and I am living it. That's the most important thing. I am living this thing every day. You changed my life, woman. Yeah, I read this book the first time. I'm in my second read. The first time I read it was last year. And I will tell you, the reason it changed my life is because it talks about how me, I can do something that changes things. Like it's just me, right? But I don't have to hold a sign marching down the street looting. I'm not that girl, right? But I have a lot of things that I'm worried about in the world, right? I do want to see the world different. I do want to leave my grandchildren with another type of place to live. I don't want them to have to pray about the same things that I'm praying about. And micro-activism told me how to do that. So I'm hoping that you guys will have much of the same experience tonight. So let me just do the quick intro. Our moderator is Dr. Elizabeth Sandy Ford. And Dr. Sandra Elizabeth Ford, is it Sandra Elizabeth? Sandra. It's an island thing. Well, look, this is what blew my mind. There's so many letters. MD, MBA, FAAP. So if that doesn't tell you that this is a well-rounded, well-educated woman that people have worked with, helped, nurtured, mentored, you don't get those many credentials without having a community of support behind you. And in her work, it's really demonstrated. She is a giver-backer. She is. She has quite the impressive resume. She's a board-certified pediatrician who's worn many hats, from leading health initiatives in such communities as DeKalb County, right up the street, to advising the White House on public health matters. And at one of the most important times in our history, yes, give her a round of applause. Yes, we needed her. Thank you. Dr. Ford's passion clearly lies in connecting with people and improving their health. She's led projects to help people get Medicaid, focused on maternal and child health, and even getting support from the R&B star Usher. That's a book right there. Okay, and the most, I say this, she's tackled some of the biggest health challenges that our country has faced, including the COVID-19 epidemic. With her experience and dedication, she's really made a difference in lives, and we're really honored that she has joined us today for this conversation. Help me welcome Dr. Elizabeth Ford. It's on you.
Yes, okay. Thank you all so much. Very excited to be here. What she did not mention is that I am an avid reader. And as a little girl, my punishment was that they would take my books away and make me go outside and play. So I am that girl. And so I was very excited to get to interview you, Omkari Williams, I'm so sorry, about this book, because I think about my background in public health, and health is all about activism and micro-activism. And the topic of this book right now, with everything we're seeing right now, everything that we read on the news every single day, could not be more timely. I was trying to figure out, did she write this in the last 3 or 4 weeks, or January 20th, or, when did you start to write this? But I am curious about what did motivate you to write this book.
Well, first off, thank you so much, and thank you, Yolanda, for having me here. This is amazing. I'm thrilled to be here and with all of you. So, the truth is, someone asked me to write the book. I had no intention of writing a book. One day I got a message in my email saying, "Are you interested in writing a book about this topic that I talk about all the time?" And I was like, uh, I mean, I'll have a conversation with you, sure. So I call up this woman and I get on the phone, and she says that she wants me to write this book. And I was like, I've never written a book. I don't have any idea how to do this. And she said, well, we need a book proposal and we need you to do this, that, and the other. And I said, okay. And it was February. And I said, do I have a length of time to do this? And she said, any time you want to take. And I said, okay, how about this? I will have the proposal to you by August, because that's my birthday month, and it gives me a good 6 months. And she said, that's fine. And about 2 weeks later, I thought, I should make some notes so I don't lose the thread of this before I even start. And 2 weeks after that, the proposal was written. And that's when I knew that this was just honestly like a download. It was just there waiting for me to put it out in the world. So I sent in the proposal. The usual back and forth happened. In July, we signed a contract and they said, okay, great, and we'll publish in 2024. And I said, I'd really like it to be published in 2023 before we get into the craziness of the election cycle. So this is July, right? And they said, well, we can do that if you have us the book by the end of September. And I was like, have they changed the months in the year? It's like July, August, September. I'm like, 3 months. Okay. So I sat myself down at my desk every single day, 5 days a week, for the next 3 months, and I wrote it. And again, it was there. It wasn't like I had to struggle to write this. And that just told me that, I know my material, but more than that this was important to have out in the world. That the world needed this information, and I was just the conduit for this information. And so that's how the book came to be. I mean, it's also the most disciplined I've been since college. I'm not lying. And that's still true. I have not been that disciplined since. But, so it happened, and that was how it happened.
So it sounds like it was just waiting to be written, basically.
It was waiting to be written, and I was the person who got to write it.
Awesome. That's wonderful. So I think about micro-activism, and I think about people today are a little fearful. We have people that are afraid. And so how do you decide, how does one decide what to fight for given the risks? Political risk, your job risk. What do you stand up for? How do you figure out what's the win? I mean, and is it worth it?
It's always worth it, because on your deathbed, you're not going to be sitting there saying, oh, I'm sorry I took that risk. You're going to be saying, I'm sorry I didn't. Because other people are counting on us to continue the work. We don't have to finish the work, but we don't get to stop doing the work. That is not okay. And especially right now, when they are actively trying to erase us. We do not get to stop. We get to make decisions about what we want to do, but we don't get to make decisions to do nothing. That is not okay. So the whole thing about micro is that you can do a tiny little thing, and if you do it consistently, over and over, it accumulates. It's kind of like brushing your teeth. You don't brush your teeth once and you're done with that. I mean, you could, but it isn't going to work out too well for you. But you don't even think about brushing your teeth twice a day, right? You just brush your teeth twice a day. That's what you do. And that's what micro-activism is like. It's like you make it so small that not doing it seems silly, and then you do it, and you realize it becomes a habit, and you can keep doing it, and you can keep growing it, and it's like, to torture the tooth analogy, Then you start flossing every day and your dentist is super happy with you, right? So then you start taking slightly bigger actions because you've found your comfort in the zone in one area and you say, I can do more. I can bring someone along with me. I can make a little bit more of a difference. And you commit yourself to that because it feeds you and it feeds your community and it feeds the world. And that's why I think micro matters, because you can burn yourself out trying to do a big old thing, right? That's not the point. We don't need the big, flashy actions. I mean, yeah, you can do that if you want, but that's not how the work gets done. The work gets done one step at a time, over and over and over, and we have learned that from the ancestors, and now is not the time to forget that lesson.
So the other piece of that, other than the bravery piece, is there is so much going on right now, and there's so much we need to be macro and micro-active about. How do you decide what to fight for?
I think that you decide by looking inside yourself and saying, what's the thing that hits me the hardest? Like, I remember from the time I was a little child, I mean little, the thing that always drove me crazy was injustice. I could not tolerate injustice. I must have said, it's not fair 17 billion times by the time I was 10 years old, right? To which my dad would always say, life isn't fair. And I would always say, it should be, right? So for me, it's justice. For you, it could be any number of things. It could be animal rights. It could be bullying. It could be health care. Anything that gets you going, do that thing. Because that thing is always going to matter to you. I call it your origin story. What's the thing you remember having happened where you took a stand for something and you said, I don't care. My voice may be shaking, my knees may be knocking, but I'm standing up for this thing. That's the thing you should stick to, because that's the thing that's always going to get you going. That's the thing that's always going to have you be motivated to make a difference. No one's going to have to drag you, right? If you really care about animal rights, no one has to drag you to make sure that animals aren't being abused. And someone might say, but there's so many other causes. Yeah, there are. There are also 8 billion plus people on the planet. So if everybody does the thing they care about, we've got it covered. We don't all need to be doing the same thing or caring about the same thing. Care about what you care about and put your energy there. And really honestly assess your risk tolerance. Don't put yourself in situations that feel super, super risky if that is not who you are. Don't do that. You don't want to make it so it's hard for you to keep doing this work. You want to make it so it's natural to keep doing the work. And constantly being afraid, like really afraid, is not the way to do that. And also, courage is a muscle. Keep exercising it, it will keep growing. So you can do something now that feels a little risky, and then the next time you do it, it's like, you know what, the first time was fine. I can do that again, and maybe even take a bigger step. But you don't have to push yourself to places that you're not comfortable going.
Let's spend a little bit more time with your origin story.
Okay. My
Yes,
personal
because you
origin
said
story?
injustice, but that's a big topic, so tell us more about that.
So I grew up with a father who was a diplomat and a humanitarian. He worked in places as wide apart as Bosnia during the war there, and then Rwanda during the genocide, and many, many other places. So the conversation at our dinner table was not like normal conversations, right? And I always knew that for all the challenges of being a Black girl in New York, my life was pretty easy relative to a lot of other people's lives. And that gave me just a different sense of who I needed to be in the world. And I knew that I wanted to make a difference, but I knew that I did not have the temperament my dad had I couldn't, I mean, the things he saw in his lifetime were some of the most terrible things you could imagine seeing. And I'm just not built like that, right? So rather than trying to do something that I wasn't good at, I started looking for where I was good. And because injustice was a thing for me, one of the first things I did was doing theater at institutions for people with mental challenges. And I did this with a bunch of friends from junior high school and high school right on up through college. And we would go to these places. Sometimes it was people with mental disabilities. Sometimes it was people who had cerebral palsy and their families just didn't want them home. So they were institutionalized, even though they were super smart and did not belong at all in these places where they were not being mentally stimulated. I mean, so we would just go and do what we could, right? We would bring art and we would bring theater and we would bring music and dance to these places. And that always felt really nourishing to me, but it didn't feel like enough. And so I started to get more political and look at how do you change policy, not just address the impacts of policy. And so that was really how I I spent a long time as an actor. And then after that, I spent a long time doing political consulting. I'm pretty sure I'm going to hell for that. This is my penance. Hopefully it's taking, please. But I want to change structures, and I've always wanted to change structures. I mean, the unfairness thing was me wanting to change a structure. I just didn't have the language for that when I was 5, but I have the language for it now. So that's really, it's coming from the family I came from. Doing nothing was kind of not really an option.
Okay, so we've talked about origin story. One of the other big topics in the book was about role models. And as Yolanda mentioned, nobody gets where they are without somebody nurturing them and rah-rahing them and cheering them on and bringing that sunshine when it's raining. And so who are or were or will be your role models?
Oh my gosh, I have so many. First, there's my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, who lived to be 102. She was a pistol, let me tell you. She was like all of 5'1" and fierce. I mean, fierce. You did not mess with grandma. When she passed...
Don't mess with those little people now.
No. I mean, when she passed, my dad delivered the eulogy and he said, Mother wouldn't want me to say how old she was, but let me put it this way, she lived in 3 centuries. And I remember thinking, she's going to smite you. She's going to smite you. She was so powerful. When she was in her 90s, we had to move her into a nursing home because it just wasn't safe to her to live alone at home. And she was really mad for about a week. And then she's like, I kind of like it here. This place is kind of nice and the people are nice. She said, but the food is terrible. So she went and petitioned the mayor of New York City to start a commission to look at the food in the city's nursing homes. So she would motor around on her walker, going to different nursing homes, checking out the food, and then, she was something, right?
So she was a public health inspector.
Pretty much. Yep, so that was Georgiana. She was cool. And then, obviously my dad, because his work was amazing. But also, artists. Artists have always been inspiration for me because art opens a window into the world that we otherwise don't have. Looking around this gallery, I am so inspired. And when I say art, I don't just mean visual arts. I mean, James Baldwin's writings, Nina Simone's music. It's there. There's inspiration everywhere if you just look for it. And often people don't look. It's like, look, actually take the time to see what you're looking at. Really be observant. Notice the little kids playing in the park. Notice how they play. Notice what their freedom and their joy. And find that in yourself, because that lives still in you, even though the world's trying to stomp it to death. Don't let the world stomp it. You know, find the inspiration wherever you can take it. Puppies playing in the dog park, right? That freedom. Reconnect to nature. Reconnect to those places of freedom and let them be your inspiration. Because ultimately what we're all looking for is freedom. We're looking for freedom. We're looking for dignity. We're looking for justice. Find it and then keep moving towards it and amplify it when you see it.
So micro-activism, really simply put, is fighting and battling, okay? But when you fight like that, at some point you need to step back and do some self-care.
Yes,
And this is something that most of us fail at, or don't do enough, or don't do often enough, and don't make sure other people are doing it as well. So what are you doing for self-care?
So, all appearances to the contrary, I am a deeply introverted person. I know it does not seem like it, but trust me when I say that that is the truth. And because people think introverts means you're shy, but that's not what it means. It means that you recharge in solitude. I need a lot of alone time. So for me, I'll do something like this, and then I'll go and I'll be by myself, and I might have a glass of wine and read a book or watch a movie on TV or something like that. But I also make sure that I spend as much time out in nature as I possibly can. Because, you know, living in cities, we all get so, we forget to even look up, right? We forget to look up, we forget to look at the sky, we forget to look at the moon and the stars. When we remember that we are part of nature, we move through the world very differently, and that restores me. So I spend a lot of time in nature. I try and spend a lot of time just reading, and sometimes there are things with absolutely no redeeming social value. I'm fine with that. You know, I mean, give me a good Swedish mystery movie or novel. I love that. You know, kill somebody off and let me figure out who did it. I'm right there. So, yes. So yeah, so that's really my self-care. But I mean, I think that, and it's funny because when I have a bunch of profiles in the book, and I asked people the question about self-care, and it was the question I got the most pushback on. It's like, Lordy, people, I'm not asking you if you're chopping up small children. I'm asking you about self-care. But it's been so commodified that people sort of reacted to it like I was saying, oh, you know, are you spending $400 on a bottle of goop? And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking you how you don't fry yourself to a crisp.
I mean, I think we feel guilty sometimes when you do this work, whenever you take time for yourself. So
yeah. But would you ever say to your best friend, oh no, you should keep going because you look like you're on your last leg and I want to see you fall over? You would never, ever, ever say that. But we'll do it to ourselves. That is not a path that we can stay on. We have to figure out how to just accept that we need time away. And time away does not mean quitting. It means time away and then you go back. The point is, go back. Don't stop. Stopping is not acceptable forever, and it's necessary at times. And again, 8 billion people, if we're all doing our thing, someone is picking up the slack. So it's not all on you. It's never going to be all on you, and that's really important to remember.
yeah, I told y'all I was an introvert. So there's a quote shared by one of the people you interviewed for the book that really stuck with me. No one is free until we're all free. In this me environment, how do you encourage that? And I'm thinking of it really as a pediatrician, because I feel like if you instill in your children, that's the easiest way. But how do you do it in general?
Yeah, especially since you are a physician, I think of that the way I think of the measles outbreak, right? It's like, because some people are not choosing to avail themselves of what science has created for us, there's a whole bunch of other people who are now at risk, right? I mean, I have two nephews. They are 2 and 4. They are adorable. But the 2-year-old hasn't gotten all of his measles shots yet because he's not old enough. Or maybe he's just gotten them. But there was a point where he had not. And children that age are not completely protected, even though they've gotten one of the shots. And so someone else being selfish is putting someone else's child at risk, right? That's none of us being free. If we're not free to take care of one another, if we don't understand the necessity to take care of one another, we are not free. Because something is going to come in, someone is going to grab something for themselves with no regard for the rest of us. And I think that in this society, we are in this really dangerous moment of individualism, and I use that word advisedly because that is not how humans are meant to function in this world. We are not meant to function as just individuals. We are animals. We work best in community, and we need to remember that. So for us to be free, we need it all for all of us. It's like the word I use most these days is dignity. People deserve to live lives of dignity. And that is across the board. And if you are living a dignified life and you are treating other people with dignity, then that's what goes around and comes around, and that's what we need. And I just don't have more words for it than that. It's just the most important thing I can say is what we're really fighting for is dignity and freedom. And if you keep that at the forefront, whatever way you fight for it, doesn't really matter. Your 8 billion other friends on the planet will pick up the slack where you're not putting your attention, and we'll all be fine. But we need dignity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's open up the floor for some questions. If anyone has some, please raise your hand and we'll get somebody to run to you with a mic. Our lovely hostess Shirley will run to you with a microphone. There's a question in the back. Yes.
I heard you speak a lot about your father and how he inspired you and motivated you. And I really love how you said when you were 5 years old, you already had that get up and go. You spoke about your grandmother. How about your mom?
My mom, oh my gosh. My mom she was a really remarkable person. She did not grow up here. She was born in the United States, but she was raised in Trinidad by her grandparents and didn't come here till she was 18 years old and was educated in English Catholic convent schools. So my mom was more British than Trinidadian in a lot of ways, and she was the first female executive, first female executive, and also first black person to be an executive, black woman to be an executive at AT&T. She was a groundbreaker. I did not know that. She never told me that. I happened to become friends with someone who used to work at AT&T, and I said, oh, my mom used to work there, and she's like, oh, what was her name? And I said her name, and my friend's like, oh my God, your mother was a legend. I was like, she was? Who knew? Right? She was so just reticent in that way, but she was this really powerful voice for treating people kindly. My mom was an incredibly kind person. And yeah, she was, and she cooked like no one's business. I'm just saying. She was great. She was great. They were an interesting combination because my dad was so out there and my mom was like, I'm here.
It's a great question. Thank you. Is there more? Try on over there. Your question is good though, so we're gonna have to get to you.
Just,
There we go. Okay. I'm interested in, and I'm attorney Charles Ford, and I wrote a book that there's a concept in your book that's kind of similar to a concept in my book, and just kind of want to know how you came up with it, and that's about the 8 billion. If everybody does their part, then then we're going to be okay. I talk about that because I got it from John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King. I kind of combined their two famous statements, but I don't want to go into that because it's in my book. But how did you come up with that? I mean, what made you think about that?
actually, I think the thing that made me think about that was that I've always had this really diverse group of friends. And so people were interested in a bunch of different things. I mean, we had a lot of overlapping interests, but we also had a bunch of interests that did not overlap. And and I just started thinking about it and I was like, well, you know what? It's good that you're working on that. And it's good that you're working on that. And then I thought about it more and it's like, oh, 8 billion people, if we're all doing different things, then everything is covered because we aren't all that different, right? There's only so many things people really care about that, we have the same basic concerns. How they may manifest can really vary, but the underlying concerns are the same. And so, everyone wants a good place to live and food, and they want to be able to afford the things they need, and they want their children to be healthy. These are universal things. So I started just thinking, well, let people do what they want to do, right? Let's not try and shove people into paths that are not their path. Let them do what they want to do, and we'll cover it. It was really kind of just from my own friend group and looking at how many different things all of us were interested in.
Thank you.
My question is rooted in our current political environment.
Oh dear.
Um, of course, we all are aware of Project 2025, and we know that was born way before now.
Yeah.
There was a seed planted with the progress that diversity brought to this country. And of course, that seed festered to become Project 2025. And my idea is, where's our Project 2025 for the next election season? So looking at your book, with that being on my mind and possibly the mind of so many others, how do we start that seed that was started as a, not in defense, but for offense for what's coming in the next major election cycle? And where can we find that direction in your book?
Well, my book was written before I knew anything about Project 2025, so I don't address that at all. But, and you're right, Project 2025 is actually about 50 years in the making. It started in the Reagan time, right? That man was the devil. How we address it, and I've been thinking a lot about this. I'm not sure I have an answer. I can tell you what some of my thinking on it is. I don't think that we need our own version of Project 2025 in the way that it's sort of structured, because I think what we need to do is really reimagine the American experiment from the ground up, right? I'm not saying burn it to the ground, because when you do that, people get hurt badly. You cannot we see what's happening. That's what's happening. It's being burnt to the ground and people are dying, right? So I don't advocate for that, but I advocate for looking at what works, taking what works, doing our best to imagine a different way of being in the world, which is hard, very, very hard, because it's hard to imagine what you've never seen, but that's what we're being called to do. And I think that the way we do that is in community, through conversations, through listening to people's lived experiences, through understanding what people need and trying to figure out how can we provide those needs in a way that does not push someone else off to the side. And it's hard. We are in for a really hard time. The country is never going to be what it was 6 months ago. We have passed that point. So we need to figure out where we go from here. And it is a really challenging conversation, but it's an essential conversation. We cannot keep pretending that we're going to be able to go back. That is not going to happen. That genie is out of the bottle and gone on an island somewhere, sunning themselves and never coming back to here. So we have, but it's on us. It's on us. We cannot wait for someone else to do it. We need to be doing this in community, having conversations in community, really thinking about mutual aid, really thinking about how we support one another, really thinking about how we respond rather than react to what is happening, because reacting is not good. Responding is what we need. And so these are really challenging times. And people have lived through really challenging times before, and we should be looking at them for lessons on how to move through this time, because we haven't had this experience. We've been really insulated and fortunate.
That's a great question. Next question. Hi.
Hello. I'm glad to hear you talk about being in acting in film or whatever way that you did. Have you thought forward with your book and putting it in film or in product placement in movies?
You know, I haven't actually thought about that.
Then let me ask you, how can I work with you in doing that?
Look at that. See? There you go.
Let's have a
Networking
conversation.
at its finest.
Let's have a conversation. Yeah, you know, film is such an important medium right now that I believe we need to use every tool in our tool belts. So I'm open to pretty much anything that's legal and not immoral. Yeah, I don't want to give them any more ammunition to haul me off to, wherever.
You got a lawyer here, so I think.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. That was so. Here we go. Future networking opportunity right here. Any other questions? Yes.
Final question.
Yes, ma'am.
I've been dying to ask this. So, in your book, you talk about archetypes.
Yes.
And I thought that was brilliant for me, because I'm a person that I always try to understand, how do I fit into the world, and how do people perceive me, and how do I see, how do I interact based on all these different personalities that are out there. So it made me think of Myers-Briggs, if y'all have taken Myers-Briggs.
Yeah.
That in her book is a Myers-Briggs for activism, to where you can see your personality in an archetype. So there's the organizer archetype, and then the defender, producer archetype, and so forth. Can you share, because I can't remember all of them.
That's fine.
Can you share the archetypes and how you came to that? I thought that was a very brilliant component of the book.
Well, first
And
off, thank
it'll play
you.
well in the movie.
Thank you very much. And the funny thing is the archetypes really came out of my acting life, because I looked at them the way I would look at a film, right? So there are 4 archetypes. There's the headliner, so your movie star, right? There's the producer, that's self-explanatory. There's the organizer, who would be like the person in charge of craft services, so food. And then there's the indispensable, and that's like the background actors. And that was how I thought of it. And the archetypes really are there to explain to us who we are in this world of activism. Everyone has a role to play, and no role is more important than any other role. I mean, I'm sorry. People think, oh, but they're the star. Well, yeah, but if they've got no producer, no person doing the food, because there's never been a movie in the history of movies that was made without food and coffee. Trust me on this one. And you don't have any background actors, you don't have a movie. I don't care if you've got, I don't care if you've got Michael B. Jordan. There's still no movie, right? You need everyone. And that was really the sort of driving motivation for me, was to show people how they are important. It's not just that you have to be the star. I mean, I personally, so yeah, I'm a headliner archetype. I'm happy sitting up here. I'm fine with that. But I also am really happy being in a back office, stuffing envelopes, or printing out flyers for the next march. I don't always need to be center stage. So meanwhile, like, I am not a producer, because they do things with spreadsheets and stuff, and I'm like, no, you don't want me doing that. That is not going to work out well for anybody. So everyone has their skill set, and leaning into your skill set makes it so much easier to keep up your activism work, because you're not working against yourself. You're working with yourself. The other thing about archetypes is they're not fixed. So you might be a headliner today, but then tomorrow calls for you to be an indispensable. Or you might be a producer, but someone might ask you to do something that requires you to step into the spotlight. And you're like, okay, it's not my favorite thing, but I can do that, right? We are flexible, multifaceted people. And the archetypes can change and evolve as you grow and change. And it's just, it's really there as a tool to help people find their way into activism. It is not there as these rigid walls around you. So it's a tool. Use it when you don't need it, put it down, but it can help. And it can help you also with your friends, because you can see who your friends are more easily than they can often, right? You can look at your friend and like, oh God, she needs to organize this because she's so good at that. And your friend's like, really? And you're like, yeah, of course. Don't you realize that about yourself? And they're like, no. But it's true, right? We see our friends so clearly. So that can help you with that. It can also help you when you need to take a break, because you know who to go to fill in for what you're doing. You're not going to go to the person who would rather sit home with a sharp object in their eye than sit up here when you need someone to sit up here. You're going to go to someone who's like, yeah, I can do that for you. So you're not making unreasonable demands on yourself or on them. And that's another thing that's super important. Ask people for what they can reasonably do. Ask yourself for what you can reasonably do. Don't put unreasonable demands on yourself and then pound on yourself when you don't need them. So that's the sort of short version of what the archetypes are for. And if you go to my website, which is my name, OmkariWilliams.com, you can find the archetype quiz and see where you fit on that spectrum.
Thank you. That was a very powerful piece of the book, the archetypes, because I am generally a headliner, but you say need a change, and so I have really been enjoying the producing role for the last couple of years, and now I'm done with that. I mean, you will change, based on what's going on in your world, so it's a great book. Y'all really need to read this book. Anything else from us? Well, please, you all join me in thanking Omkari Williams for this amazing discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we are looking for all of you to find your way to be your micro and macro activists, because there's a lot of work we need to do right now.
There is a lot of work, so let's get to it. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.